Good evening, all. Happy New Year. Welcome to our regular City Council meeting. This is Tuesday, January 14th. It's approximately 5:03, and I'm calling the meeting to order. May we get a roll call of council members, please?
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yep.
And Councilmember Schaefer?
He said.
Yes.
Okay. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'm showing no additions or corrections to the agenda tonight. I'm going to move on to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are action items, and they consist of approval of December 10, 2024, City Council meeting minutes, approval of fiscal year 2025 first quarter treasurer report, reappointment of Public Safety Commission members, acceptance of Larry Michael Rains and Teresa Rains dedication right-of-way of grant of easement, acceptance of Michael and Constance Drager grant of easement, acceptance of ITD quit claim deed for real property and opportunists associated with project number A019883, key number 19883, approval of 2025 Coeur d'Alene School District 271 agreement for use of facilities, approval of BSNA supplemental contract for integrated payments, approval of the contract amendment for the preliminary engineering for H6 lift station and Ramsey Road gravity sewer, which is Wyoming Avenue to Dakota Avenue, approval of JUB Engineers Incorporated and authorization of contract amendment for H6 Force Main project, approval of JUB Engineers Incorporated, authorization of contract amendment for flow monitoring, approval of engineering services agreement with Welch Comer for survey services, approval of engineering services agreement with Welch Comer Engineers for plan review services, approval of engineering services agreement with Iteris for traffic engineering, approval of North Fork Enterprises change order number 06C for Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer Phase 1, Wyoming to Buckles, approval of short-term rental agreement with Prime Time Construction for a 97CAT/140H grader, approval of purchase request for new grader wing for Cat Grader, approval of PZE 240014 North Winds Phase Subdivision preliminary plat written decision, approval of PZE 20193 Battleground Phase Subdivision preliminary plat written decision, ratification of the December 2024 payroll ratification, and approval of bills for payment. Are there any questions on the consent calendar items, or would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question on item number 2. I would like to know about the Fund 122.
Could you, is it one what?
It's the approval of the fiscal year quarterly treasure report.
B, thank you.
Yes, sorry.
And the question is again, I'm sorry.
Fund 122 about the interest revenue.
And what's the question about?
The $518. I'd like to know if is that the proper number for the interest revenue?
Are you? Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay,
We can't see each other.
Okay, I wasn't trying to make sure who's on first. So Lisa let me know that was a question that you had, and so we went in and we researched and made sure that we knew what we were doing. Remember that we have not closed out the 9/23 fiscal year audit, and when that closes out, it will be trued up the interest for the fund. So in 22, I believe they went into an agreement with the sheriff to put in the dock down at Honeysuckle, and that project closed out, and it spent most of the money in the law enforcement funds. As they close out the 23 audit, they will true up all of the circulation funds, impact fee funds for the 3 different ones, and make sure that the interest that goes to each one is proper when the 923 hasn't closed out yet. So you will see that adjustment, and it will change in the current, when they do the financial statements.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Tom.
so
I'm wondering if one of the items that's on the consent calendar should be pulled out into either continuing or new business. And it has to do with, forgive me, I'm looking at my screen right now. All right, this is item 1J, JUB Engineers authorization of contract amendment for the H6 Force Main. And the reason I'm asking this is because the total amount is a little over $200,000 for public visibility. Would it be prudent for us to move it out of consent and at least acknowledge it through public discussion under new business or continuing business?
Alan or Rob, any comments on that?
I can answer questions if you'd like, but
Is there a specific issue that you have with it, Tom, or is it just simply the amount of money?
No, I don't. It's the amount of money that brings it to my attention.
I will share this, and maybe this will help. That money that's associated with that contract has been issued to the city through HARBS, and it's HARBS' funds that we have possession of.
So we're a pass-through.
It's a pass-through cost.
So it's a pass-through cost, Tom, so the city's not obligating any money in this. It's
I understood. Was that in the memo and I missed it?
It should be in the memo. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
okay, well, regardless, does
If it
that,
was, it's my apologies.
nope, that's all right. Any other questions, Tom?
Nope, that's my only one on the consent calendar.
Thank you. Any other council member have any questions for the consent calendar? Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the consent calendar as stated 1A through 1T.
You?
You.
Q?
You. It's on the letter U.
Oh, well, mine says T.
Mine was a T.
I got mine early, so you then.
Yeah, if you got one early, it was a T, and
I can read.
all
So
right.
yeah, that'll make that to 1U, please.
Thank you. So we have a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 1A through 1U.
I second it.
And we have a second. Any need for discussion? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yep.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, going to move on to our next agenda item, which is visitor public comment. We have one speaker card for public comment, Art Collins. Art, I will skip my script because you've heard it before. I just ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. The podium is yours.
Now? Do it now? Oh, fine, okay. I gotta kitchen my video up here. Is the consultant here
For,
for the comprehensive plan amendment process?
yes.
Where is he? Okay, I just want to know if he's here.
And just real quick, would you state your name and the city you live in?
Yeah, it's Art Collins, 1214 Glenmore Court, Hayden, Idaho.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Fire
yeah.
away.
I just want to find, it said twice in your proposal,
Art, the comments are to council, please.
the what?
Comments are to council.
Yeah, I know, but you can't answer it, but the consultant can answer it. And I just want to know, what is the details of a robust community engagement?
Okay.
What is robust? I just want to know, I mean, as a citizen, I just want to know, what's he talking about? No, get some details. That'd be very helpful.
We'll try to include that in the brief.
That would be helpful.
Yes, sir.
Then the other thing is, I guess I've said this 100 times, and I'll say it 101 times again. The land use plan, the comprehensive land use plan is not about density. It's land use. And on the table, 1.1, you're talking about density is not right-sized. Density is not an issue with comprehensive planning. It's land use. And, you know, I mean, it's not, why do we, I mean, there's a problem with the consultant. He doesn't understand the state law. That's all. And I'd say that has to be omitted. If you're going to consider comprehensive planning amendments, it's nothing to do with density. It's all about land use, that's all.
Okay.
Okay. And, let's see. What was the other one? There's one more. Yeah, that's it.
All right, Art, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll try to hit those points
Yeah,
when we discuss
robust
that tonight.
community. I know what robust is. I did it in Eagle Meridian and Cuna. It was so robust, I practically lived in Eagle Meridian and Cuna to develop the comprehensive plans. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Okay, so we're moving on to item 3. Our impact fee committee previously made recommendations to city council, who accepted the recommendations. We're kicking off our first business tonight with a hearing to listen to the public, should they wish to provide comment regarding the city's proposed development impact fee increase. So the first thing we'll have is a single slide by staff, just for reference, and just so the members of the public that are here understand what we're talking about.
Maybe. All right, Abby, how do I make my screen big?
Go down to the bottom to the Adobe, yeah, your PowerPoint. Like the PowerPoint icon.
It's sharing your screen, so.
Yep,
There you go.
and click on that. There you go.
Thank you, sorry. Three slides, but,
Okay,
just as a brief recap of how we got to the public hearing, the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee recommended to City Council at the conclusion of their deliberations at their meeting for an increase from what they're currently charging, which is in year 1 of the study, to what is maximum amount allowed in year 3 of the 2025 column of the impact fee study. And that is how they got there, and all of the background information was provided at the last city council meeting on December 10th, and was included in the workbook packet as part of the information provided to city council. It's been noticed in the papers, and we're here tonight for public comment related to the increases in the impact fees. Those increases amount to a 5% annual increase related to single-family residential, and the commercial was a 3-year roll-in of the full amount allowable. So that 3-year roll-in occurred here in addition to the 5% increase annually. And what is shown in the red box is what is proposed to be collected should the public hearing at the city, at the conclusion of the public hearing, should the city council approve the request.
thank you, Donna.
Recommendation.
Council, you've seen this information before. Do you have any questions for Donna tonight?
I have a question. So Donna, just for the sake of information, can you explain who determines the maximum amount allowed?
The impact fee study was completed by the FCS group. And at the completion of that review, they looked at the capital improvement projects that we were proposing to complete within a short window of time, 5 to 10 years, generally speaking. And they look at how those projects are divvied up as far as costs across growth across the city. In the parks, and this includes parks and transportation. And then they work their magic with those numbers and that math and provide, based on trips that each one of these kind of service units on average produce. That's how you get the requirements per square foot for the commercial. And also on trips, how much single-family residential contributes. And then parks are based on levels of service that were adopted by the city in the master plans.
Okay. So this maximum amount isn't established by a government agency or anything like that?
Based
It's
totally
by-
on projects that came forward that are part of the capital improvement plans.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
On that one, and I don't know who to ask the question of, and I'm not putting anybody on the spot, but it's going through my brain, and I got to ask the question. When I look at the residential transportation fees, that's the one that concerns me the most because of the congestion we already have on our roads. But what I read here is that from less than 1,000 square feet per unit is 2523, and 2,500 square feet and above is 2932. So my question is, I know that those fees have come through a committee who did an analysis. Is that enough to help fix our traffic problem? So I'm going to ask anybody, can anybody answer? I mean, is it a drop in the bucket or is it, we're going to keep going?
I will, I don't know that I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to answer the question. The number is based on a formula that's based on what is allowed by law, and it's also based on the traffic. So it isn't designed to fix traffic problems. It's designed to pay for the projects that have been approved on the capital improvement plan. And those projects, and the portion of that project which is associated with growth, not the part of the project that's associated with
Deficiency.
deficiency. And that's part of the code, and we can't change that.
So Idaho code specifically states that impact fees cannot be used for current deficiency.
I understand that. We have codes we have to follow, but I'm still going to go to the question, how much does it really help fix our road problems?
In
It helps.
percentage or in?
Every dollar helps.
Every time you have impact
But-
fee dollars
But
available.
we keep going backwards with growth. And I know by state law, that's all we can charge, but, you know, I'm sitting here and with my fellow council members, you know, we're faced with, we have a real problem with congestion, we have for a long time, is how are we going to fix it? And we just keep kicking the can down the road. We keep approving developments because they can't fix deficiencies. They can only pay for what they will contribute to the deficiency. So how do we fix this? That's my question.
And this is designed to address one element, and that is the factor of growth over top, from where we are today. And so that's what it can fix. It can't fix anything else, Matt. I don't know how to.
I mean, you can appreciate our position. We're dealing with the public and they're saying people are going through red lights, there's more accidents, the congestion's getting worse. What are you guys doing about it?
Matt, I think those are great questions, but I think this is apples and what we're bringing up is bowling balls.
I know, but it's totally related to what we're discussing.
I agree it's related, I just,
So if there's no answer, I guess that's what we tell the public.
Who are you looking for an answer from?
If you quit building, they won't come.
So from a statutory perspective, you have an obligation to have your impact fee committee in place and intact and to review your impact fees and make a recommendation to you. So that's what they've done here. And then under the same code, you're required to hold a public hearing in relationship to the fees that they've put in front of you. And that's what you're approving tonight. I think your rhetorical questions are spot on and they're well received and should be analyzed. It's just not in conjunction with what you're doing here, unless your goal is to send these fees back to your impact fee committee for a different recommendation, of which, as Alan has indicated, then they are required to go back to the consultant and work through the formula.
Yeah, I understand that. I just am trying to solve a problem that's lingering. And this is the one mechanism that we have other than raising property tax.
Well, you
which I
have-
don't
It's a
wanna do.
tool.
You have tools, but it's going to fall on the backs of the citizens.
Rather than the developers.
You have you have the ability for an LID district, is the one that comes to mind.
Okay, that's all I had. I'm just looking for advice on how we fix this problem. I hope you can appreciate my position. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions for staff? Okay, we don't have any public comment cards here, but I will make one last, or one call out to the public in room. Does anyone wish to provide comment on this agenda item?
Because it is a public hearing.
Because it is a public hearing, yes. Fill out a card at the back and, the green one, please. Okay, we're going to accept comments from Jeff Coder. Jeff, would you just state your name and the city you live in, please?
My name's Jeff Coder, and I live in Hayden.
Okay, and just to be clear, he wishes to speak your position on, you really have a position on impact fees?
Well, in response to Councilman Roeder's question, okay, what do we do about all this, okay? And I see it as a problem that, the government creates on its own by expanding, okay? So you got builders coming in and, more people coming in and more taxes because they got to pay for, but it never really covers the impact, okay? You're always getting behind the curve instead of ahead of the curve. And it's like the movie Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come, okay? Your speculation is by 2030 or 2040, we're gonna have 50,000 more people, okay? Who comes up with that number? You just pull it out of your hat or something. And if you build it, they will come. And we will never be able to pay enough because the more they come, the more you tax and you're never gonna get on top of the thing. If you don't build it, they won't come. Why will people come here if there's no infrastructure for them, if there's no room for them? Okay? And then the city council and government in general can live within their means, within their budget. Yeah. That's all I gotta say. Maybe it's oversimplified, but that's the way I look at it. Don't build it and they won't come, period.
Thank you for your comments, Jeff. And just on the impact fees, are you for, against, or neutral?
Kind of neutral. There's a bunch of word salad there I don't really understand. So
Fair enough.
I'll just leave it alone.
Thank you. Are there any other members in the public that would like to provide comment on impact fees? Okay, I'm hearing no, so I'm closing the public hearing and the agenda item. Here, moving on to item 4A.
Pat,
You need to
did you
Do we not have to have a council
prove it or
vote?
whatever.
That, no, that's gonna come in item,
all right, different process.
little different process, yeah, that's gonna come up later, I promise, 5B.
All right.
All right.
Close the public hearing, correct,
The
Mr. Mayor?
public hearing is closed. All right, our first unfinished business item is to hear SCJ's proposed comprehensive plan updates assessment. If accepted, staff asks council to provide direction to the next step.
So, Mr. Mayor, we have Aaron McCarr from SCJ Alliance here to present the findings of the memo that was provided to council from SCJ. It's all yours. Thanks.
Hello, Council. I'm Aaron Mercar with SCJ Alliance. You may notice I'm a newer face on this project. I'm taking this over from Rachel Granrath, who was leading this project previously. So I've been getting caught up to speed on everything that Rachel and our team and our Spokane office have been doing. So just going to cover what the memo says, and then I can answer any questions. So as a brief summary of what SCJ did as part of this project, we reviewed the city's proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan. Those were provided to us by, I think it was the council and some planning and zoning commission edits, yes, that proposed some changes to the goals, policies, and the future land use map. We analyzed the overall potential impacts of those proposed changes, some of them being kind of scaling back that the proposed densities and mixed use zones that are outlined in that comprehensive plan, in hopes of preserving some of the existing neighborhoods and environmental preservation as well. So we looked specifically at what we reviewed those goals and policies, made a couple tweaks, but overall they seemed pretty on track with being compliant with state code and with city, the vision, and what the public was looking for. But then we wanted to look at, okay, if we make these changes, what's that going to mean for our other plans and policies that we have in place? So we looked specifically to the transportation plan, the sewer master plan, and the parks plan, and saying, okay, if we reconfigure what our future land use map says and how much room we have for development and where specific types of developments are going to go, what does that mean for these other plans and how the outcomes of those might change based on what we change in the comp plan. So, overview of our findings and recommendations. So one of the things we looked at for the comp plan was if we could do a simple amendment, or if we needed to do an entire new comp plan, start from scratch, develop from scratch. So I think those were the two options that you'll see here. Is one is an amendment, one is an entirely new comp plan. I think the recommendation that this memo puts forward is to do the amendment part of it and not an entire new comp plan. Just because it doesn't seem like it's needed based on the level of changes that are being made. So we provide some subsequent actions that are recommended based on the comp plan, proposed comp plan amendments, and some cost estimates for those changes as well. For the comprehensive plan specifically, we'd recommend updating the comprehensive plan and subsequent plans. That's probably going to be a good portion of 2025. That would likely lead into some updates needed to zoning regulations. And that could be something that leads you into 2026 perhaps. It all depends on the timing that you're budget allows and staff time allows. We'd also recommend considering a review of your annexation agreements with required densities that are already in place. So having a process for the review and restructure of those based on some of these policy changes, and that new densities will impact the buildable lands projections. So when we change the the future land use map and what that can accommodate, that changes how well we can accommodate the projected population. According to the memo, the comprehensive plan amendment cost estimate about $30,000 compared with a complete comprehensive plan update would be on the order of 80 to 100 grand. These are high level estimates. And then zoning and development regulations that might result as a result of amending the comp plan, which staff time could also be an option for that. But a consultant estimate about 25 to 40,000 for that effort. What this means for the transportation plan, we would recommend either concurrently or closely following the comprehensive plan update, looking to update both the travel demand model and the transportation strategic plan. Those two items would need to be updated at the same time. And just a consideration outlined in the memo is to consider the increased infrastructure and maintenance costs. So when you have lower densities, you're by default going to have that requires, expanding roads, utilities, and public infrastructure over larger areas. So that could lead to higher initial and higher maintenance costs. According to this, the plan amendment piece of this, so if we were just to do the comp plan amendment, in order to adjust the transportation plan to fit that, that's the travel demand model would be about 40,000 and the transportation strategic plan about 50,000, compared with 60,000 and 110,000 if you were to do an entirely new comp plan. For the sewer master plan, the recommendation is also to update that. It'd be ideal to do it as soon as possible, but I think that the timing on that could be variable. Some other considerations put forward in the report are that reduced density can impact sewer services. So a reduction in density decreases flow and requires smaller infrastructure, impacting planning and costs. Land use changes that affect planning, so pipe guidance and infrastructure recommendations may shift in size while maintaining placement. So these are things just to consider. We're just putting it out there for you to think about. Some more considerations on the sewer master plan could require lift station study, so it may necessitate a redesign of lift stations and force mains that may be necessary due to those updated needs. Right-sizing the infrastructure, so accurate growth projections are essential to over or undersizing systems, which the sewer systems can last up to 100 years. So focusing on that efficient design and really right-sizing that for what your population projection and where you actually anticipate to be in the future. The cost impacts for future generations can also be an important consideration in the sewer master plan and how that's affected by the comp plan. So larger lots require more pipe miles per connection, which do increase user costs. Denser development and does promote efficiency and cost savings. So those are, again, just kind of which direction and how to find balance there are just things to consider in this. And then finally, development funds growth. So growth supports expandable, long-lasting wastewater systems. So as you do grow, that does increase opportunities for stronger systems. And then transition to local treatment. So the consultant that worked on your previous plan recommended potentially considering Hayden managing its own treatment plant for better consolidation and budget planning if that's something you're interested in. And this plan update cost estimate is $190,000 to $260,000. And then finally, the impacts of the parks plan. So again, we recommend that it would require an update of the parks plan. This one is probably the least urgent to update based or immediately after the comprehensive plan, because you do have decent level of service currently with your parks. So currently the goal is 5 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. And the current status, or in the 2020 plan, was Hayden exceeded this park acreage, which was at 63 acres for 15,000 residents, and nearly met trail goals. The deficits in 2020 were the need for softball fields, outdoor courts, playgrounds, picnic areas, and indoor courts. So again, some things to consider. If you update the comprehensive plan, that could impact what your growth projections and what your need for parks and recreation amenities will be. And if that growth is less, then there would be less need to have more park amenities. Lower density and slower growth reduces future park acreage and trail needs. The need and justification for future park amenities may be reduced with the change. And then we would need to consider adjusting rollout of new amenities based on this slower population growth. So this is all just to say that depending on where you're looking at going, that's going to adjust what you need and how you try to meet the demands of the future of your community. But overall, the parks plan, since you were exceeding the level of service in 2020, it seems like that's probably less of an urgent need, whereas the transportation and sewer plans were more kind of, we need to probably look at those sooner than later after updating the comp plan. The parks plan update, this outlines some other specific updates as part of that, but overall total is in the range of 44 to 71,500. So next steps on this would be amendments to the comprehensive plan. So Idaho code outlines the process for adopting, amending, or repealing a comprehensive plan, and major changes are allowed. They may involve additional hearings, and final approval requires the governing board's resolution, council's resolution. Amendments may be proposed by the commission at any time or by public petition as long as 6 months have passed since the last petition. So you're completely within your rights to do an update like this. And then a recommended timeline, just based on what we've heard from you, would be to start this in 2025. Looking at zoning and code update, maybe later this year into next year, as well as the transportation, sewer, and parks plans, which could be in subsequent years. Just as a side note too, the transportation, sewer, and parks plans are going on 5 years old, and probably would need to be updated regardless of whether the comp plan gets updated, just because of the things that have changed in the last 5 years, and the lifespan of those plans is typically about that amount of time. That's what I have for you for overview, so I'm open to questions or comments.
Thank you, Aaron. Does council have any questions?
Are we going to obviously have discussion, deliberation, et cetera?
Well, what I believe is that after we ask questions of the consultant, we're asking council to direct staff to, for example, prepare a public hearing, for example, to adopt new parts of the comprehensive plan. That could be one option.
Well, I have significant discussions related to the elements of this report and the like, so I don't know if now is the right time to engage Mr. Merkar, is that how you pronounce it? Mm-hmm. Okay, as well as the discussion that it may spur with the council itself, so however you want me to kind of proceed, I'm not really sure whether,
I'd say if there's a question for that the consultant can answer as to why they came up with the recommendations they had, with the cost estimate they have, with the recommended projection for when to complete those, that would be most appropriate.
I think I'll wait till we get in between us, because to be honest with you, when I have my discussion here, if we can at least possibly do it, I'd like to put the current flume and the projected flume up on, so, because the issues that I have with a lot of this, and in particular, the adjustments, the goals and policies are one thing, but the other aspect of it is the adjustments to the future land use map. And if I look at what's going on right now, especially in the largest area along Hutter between Prairie and Hayden, and north of Hayden there were, okay, in a previous planning and zoning meeting, not too long ago back, it was put up on the board, and no pun intended here, most of that area is already in the pipeline. It's happening already. So, and there have been no discussions about needing to increase the pipeline, the size of the pipe or the roads, or do any changes in that area to the future land use map. When I was speaking with Alan related to when the current comprehensive plan was developed, he said that they basically developed it based on what the annexation at the time was 4 dwelling units per acre. And that's basically what's happening there. So that's a huge area, and it's the primary area of the proposed adjustments to the future land use map. And I'm trying to understand, are those calculated into what you're advising here? And if so, why? Because it's already basically in the pipeline. It's happening right now already.
So are you saying that, are we considering the development in that area as we're looking at how to guide future land use there?
I guess in a way, because it's, as far as guiding, it's too late. It's happening there already.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, and I get it. These numbers are sticker shock to me. $30,000, for just one element of it, and 100 and, I'm just going, what? Why, when I'm not in the field, okay? And I acknowledge that, but I look at it, and like I said, I can put the two maps up here. So, okay, in this area here, we've already got this, and in our traffic plan, these roads are already going in as part of this development, major parts of it. The sewer is already, if not in place, a part of these developments. So why are we even considering having to make these changes and pay these dollars to make these changes if in reality they're already happening and should have already been built into the development that's occurring? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we're looking at, updates to the comprehensive plan itself. So I think that's what the estimate is for, updating the comprehensive plan and making it consistent with those changes. And I think that some of if you're changing the future land use map, for example, there's a whole analysis that goes into, how many acres are in each type of, of land use, on the map. And then, how dense each zone can develop. So I think there's implications that kind of go beyond that, which might be part of the reason why it's just a more involved process than, changing a map, because we want to make sure that we're tracing that through to the impacts of changing that map. I don't know if I'm
Specifically related to the master plans, related to parks, roads, sewer, that aspect of it? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think that's, I think so. We're just looking at those other plans, which are separate documents, would need that update as well. But there are things internally within the comprehensive plan that we're looking at. Okay, here's our population projection that KMPO provides. how are we able to, meet that projection? Are we setting ourselves up for success because that's what we are projected to grow by?
Okay, and again, what the things I'm going to say here reflect only my opinion and nothing against anybody or anything, KMP or anything else. But I think we've had these discussions over the last couple of years, and the projections that were put out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago aren't exactly what have materialized as at this point in time. So again, it gets back to a point where, and I think what we're trying to do here, again, just from my own observation, is, and it was said by the gentleman in the audience, it is not our responsibility to facilitate people who may want to come here. Okay, we represent at this point in time the people who are here. And the people who are here in a survey that we took recently basically said, we don't want the density. Now, that being said, and I've said this before, there's a trade-off. A lot of people say we don't want to pay the increased costs also. You have to recognize that I believe the gentleman said, okay, if we do have less density and plan and develop for it, but we want all the amenities that we all want, okay, it's a sliding scale. It's true. The more people that are paying into the pot are going to have a lower amount for each of us to pay. But if we limit through our development and the like, how many people we're going to facilitate, you have to also accept that those of us living here are going to have to pay more so that we can keep that level of services because they're going to cost. Okay? And so that's a scale that I think I have to weigh in this. And I'll get off it now because when we get into it, there's a lot of things that I need to deal with related to this issue.
Tom, do you have any questions for Aaron?
Yes, I do. Aaron, thank you. I read through the report and it's clear that you make a distinction between amendments and full updates. Is there, and if I talk about just a generic city going through the comp plan process, is there a point where the city would choose or would be required to do a full update versus just amendments?
So like any city, at what point should they do a full update versus just amend the comp plan?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think in Idaho, I don't think there's necessarily a timeline associated with it. There's best practice, which I'll say like what I'm familiar with some of the comprehensive planning in Washington is, 10 years is kind of the lifetime of a plan. So I think that's generally kind of so every 10 years you should do a full plan update. And if it's been longer than that, it'd likely be a full plan update. So since your plan is only 5 years old at this point, it doesn't make sense to necessarily do an entire new plan. Unless that's what you want. There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
You kind of got to my next question because I saw in the report it was repeatedly stated every 5 to 6 years something happens, and I'm paraphrasing. And so was your report meaning to imply that around 5 or 6 years, the city needs to more seriously look at the trickle-down effect of a comp plan revision in terms of all the other infrastructure issues?
Yeah, well, I think that some of those plans that we're talking about, so the transportation, the sewer, the parks plan, the lifespan of those plans is typically shorter than a comprehensive plan. You're looking at, how can we plan for our 5 or 6 year, improvement plans? So those are really what those are intended to inform. So yeah, I think that, like a halfway point on a comprehensive plan, you'd want to look at least making some adjustments based on the changes you've seen.
Okay. So what the impression I get then is that that based upon where we are in our own city's timeline, you're saying that it's logical, probably in the next 2 to 3 years, that we would be doing revisions of the traffic plan, sewer master plan, and the parks plan anyway. Is that what you're saying or implying?
Yes, yep. So I think that those things are
Okay.
coming regardless of whether you amend the comp plan or not. Those are things, good things to look at about, you want to start thinking about it at about this time. So, yes.
About this time, okay. And last question, since you presented the framework in terms of amendments versus complete overhaul, do you have off the top of your head a totaling of costs of just purely amendments versus total overhaul?
Yeah, so that was in there. So the estimate in the memo is 30,000 for amendments and 80 to 100,000 for a full comp plan update. That would depend. Oh, sorry.
I'm talking about everything else on top of that.
Oh, yeah, so those are in there. Are you talking about like a total for all 3 of the additional plans?
Yes.
I have to do some quick math on that. So
Okay.
71.
While you're doing that math, the comment to council and to the mayor is, one thing I'm scratching my head over. What are we supposed to be doing during deliberations or a council vote at the end of this section of the meeting? Because it's unclear to me. I'm personally not even close to being prepared to select, like from a menu in this report, which direction council and staff should go. I think that council needs to sit down and go through this and hear each other and discuss what is important to us as representatives of our constituents.
Tom, if you're looking for an answer from the dais, I think that if we want to implement the city council and planning and zoning recommended vision, goals, policies, and the future land use map, the next logical step is a public hearing in support of that toward getting that implemented.
No,
No?
you will need to probably do exactly what Councilman Schaefer just suggested, is workshop the information you've heard tonight.
Okay.
So that you can make an informed decision on which you want to move forward with as far as amending the comprehensive plan only, or amending the comprehensive plan and then also doing your master plans, like what part of that? Remember, you gave them the goals and policies
Right.
that you had already approved, and they're telling you, because of the amendments you made to the goals and policies, we're suggesting that you do need amendments to your comprehensive plan and your master plan. So you need to workshop the level at which you want to proceed during that process at this point, based on what you've heard from them.
Could we do those two things in parallel?
What 2 things?
Could we go forth with the initial parts of the comprehensive plan that I believe we want to implement, and through that, again, going through the public comment process or public hearing process, and concurrently then looking more strategically at the other elements that have been proposed and figuring out at what time and when and which ones they want to, say, plan for in fiscal 26, fiscal 27.
So your public involvement with your comprehensive plan amendment is going to drive what happens ultimately with your master plans. So if you're looking at accepting what SCJ is telling you, which is your amended goals and policies do require an amendment to your comprehensive plan, then you're going to have public engagement on that amendment to the comprehensive plan, which will include public hearing. You're just not ready for it yet. So you will want to talk about, are you ready to workshop all of this right now, not right this minute, but schedule a workshop for this. Are you ready to say to SCJ, please do put together a draft amended comprehensive plan based on the goals and policies? I don't think you can do that yet. You need public engagement in order to go that far. So you need to workshop how far you want to take this and how you want to utilize them in the process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you, Fonda, for saying what I believe to be true, because as Councilman Roeder, or not Roeder, but DePriest has indicated, there's quite a sticker shock depending on which way we go. And we, as a council, can't sign up to any of that until we are able to sit across from each other at a table and discuss the options.
Okay, so possibly, and what I'm hearing you say, Tom, is that council could direct staff to coordinate a workshop with council and potentially planning and zoning?
That's up to you.
If
Right, I mean, the only,
if their
go
company
ahead,
is,
I interrupted you.
yeah, go ahead.
The only outcome I see for tonight is that we accept this report from SCJ, and that's about it.
Okay. Sandy?
Yes, I agree that we accept the report, and I would appreciate a workshop. This is a really important topic to me. This is the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. These are items that I ran on, and I believe that this, that committing to any of these packages tonight would be premature. I would like to see a workshop that's just the city council, just the four of us sitting down and talking through it. And, you know, I think we have a lot of the same goals in common, and I think that if we sat down and hashed it out and with in mind these proposals tonight, that we would get a lot accomplished.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. Could you please answer the question that Councilmember Schaefer asked about the two, if you add up the cost of the amendment and compared to the full update with all the elements, what are we talking about for the amendment range for all elements?
So for all, it's about 425 at, if you use the top of all the ranges. So for everything, 425,000, that's this, based on this
For the
estimate.
amendments?
Yes, that's for the amendments.
425,000.
Yeah, well, and that's, so that's trailing through all of those. And keep in mind, this is not a hard number. These are high-level estimates. We haven't put together a scope of work. These are based on what we know from the proposed amendments and how that would potentially impact. So we got quotes from other consulting firms that would work on those other plans. So again, these are high-level quotes. It may not, maybe we look at it and it's not nearly that much. But this, again, was just looking at high level and trying to get a first say on what the range would be.
No, we have no idea, so we have to rely on what you,
Right.
so what's the full update about?
So that would be, so that had like 50 to 70,000 on top of that. So probably on the more 500 range.
I thought there was there was quite a bit more difference.
I think I'd have to go back and do some of the math, because some of the plans gave a range that wasn't necessarily reliant on whether it was an amendment or a full update, like the parks plan.
So let me just ask you this, what's the highest price that you could charge us based on your plan? I just want to know, I want to know a range.
So, and you're talking all plans again? Because I'm less familiar. I don't work on the sewer plans or the transportation.
But you have numbers
plans.
up there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you ask your question again?
I just want to know what's the upper range for the full update on all elements.
I mean, so I think for the full update for everything, I would say just doing some quick math on the upper ranges of these, 500,000.
Yeah, but you have the sewer master plan update of 260,000, that's half of
Yeah, I
it.
added up all the high end, it was 550,000.
550,000, but the low end is 425?
Yeah.
For the amendments.
For an amendment, for an amendment of everything, 425. As he indicated, those are just saying if they came in and did an amendment, as they know
Right.
how to do, that's the cost. And the upper end for a full plan rewrite was 550 on these numbers.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Now, can I ask a question? Because you may not be here for our workshop, you may or may not, but you had a reference in one of your slides of 5 acres per 1,000 residents for parks. Where does that number come from?
I believe that comes from the Parks Master Plan, yeah.
No, but I mean, who establishes what's the right number for that?
It's in your current Parks Master Plan.
You guys did.
You did.
Okay, so we're the ones that came up with that number, but so there isn't a standard or something that you apply, you just went with what we said?
So you adopt that in your comp plan.
Okay.
There are standards that are like best practices that were probably analyzed at the time when that was adopted.
And there's 2 elements that I really would like to see, and they're kind of dear to my heart. One of them, our Governor Little, with his State of the State Union, mentioned that aquifers or aquifer protection is really important. And our chair of our county commissioners, who at the time was quoted that aquifer protection is really important. Does the comp plan, have you addressed the protection of the aquifer in this comprehensive plan? Have you looked at that at all?
So as it.
Aaron, I can help you. It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
So they're not looking at any of that yet, Matt. They're not looking at it. They will only follow your direction. The only thing they're commenting on is you gave them amended goals and policies. Were they changed enough that it requires some amendment to your comprehensive plan? And the answer is yes. The substance of a comprehensive plan all comes from you.
Okay, so I guess I've been out of it for a while.
That's okay.
So my question is, was that information of protecting the aquifer part of what was given to our consultant to consider?
It's in your amended goals and policies, yes.
That it states protection of the aquifer?
Well, you guys drafted those amended goals and policies with an aquifer piece in it.
Okay. Now, the other question I have is that, and I'm going to push for this, is that as an appendix to the comprehensive plan or an amendment to it, will we have the citizen survey results in there?
That'll be your decision.
That's not his,
It's not, it has nothing to do with them. That'll be your decision.
Okay.
Yep.
But we haven't given that to him to consider. Okay, but that's something if we workshop that we can make sure that's in there.
Yes.
Okay. The last thing I want to just bring up, and it's something I guess would be really good to discuss in workshop, and as Councilmember DePriest brings it up, I guess the way I heard Councilman DePriest say it is that I don't know what the percentage is of our build out of our city, how developed it is. The question I have is, how important is it, other than the state, well, the state statute requires it, but if we only have, say, I'm just pulling a number out, we only have 15% of our land that can be developed, it seems like we're going to spend an awful lot of money to change, maybe not very much, because there's not much left to be considered. And I see that as a concern of, I don't want to spend a lot of money on something that really isn't going to change the plans of things much. Is that a valid concern?
I mean, I think it's valid to consider what the magnitude of the impact of these changes would be to the community, yeah. I mean, you guys put them forward for a reason too, so you have to, I think it's up to you guys of how important it is to carry this forward and how much of an impact that'll have on your city.
Okay, and then my position is I think that we need to workshop this and spend more time on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dude.
it's only 6:07, it's not that late. I'd like to, can we put a projection of the future land use map up, please?
I didn't include it in a PowerPoint for
It's not
tonight.
in there somewhere in the.
For what purpose?
Well, because it gets to what Matt just said, and it's what I said earlier. We're obviously going to need a workshop, but I am really struggling. When we get to the workshop, this is going to probably be the main point. And it's easier for the visual, okay, so that everybody can kind of see what I'm talking about. And Matt, the amount of changes that we're talking about, might end up costing $500,000, that costs $4 to $5.5 plus to make what in effect are minimal changes. You know, yeah, we shaved off a lot of higher density stuff in land that's already it's in the pipeline, is gonna be single family homes already. The only big area, and it's not really that much, is up on Lancaster, where we shaved some of that. And a little bit of here and there infill.
So that,
How on earth?
That's exactly what you're going to workshop. All they're telling you right now
Okay,
is that
okay.
your proposed goals and policies that you'd like to see
I
amended
understand, Fonda.
don't align with the words in your chapters. And the words in your chapters in your comprehensive plan need to be amended to align with your new goals and policies.
And I don't mean to denigrate anything here, okay? But again, my mind is basically saying, okay, they've got these things, they have to go through the chapter. Oh, we have to change, get the word processing out and go, delete that, strike that, and add this. Okay, no. Delete that, strike $500,000
No, that's $30,000. That was a $30,000 change.
Okay.
Your master plans are the bigger
I-
ticket. And you're exactly right. When you workshop this and you boil it down and give them different direction, he gave you the very top of the scale. Those numbers may scale back drastically. So you are correct.
Okay, now, I guess the last thing I need to say here, we need a workshop. But this process started almost 2 years ago, I'm thinking, when we.
fall of 23.
Well, I know we had a workshop in August of '23, so yeah, that might have been the first one, but I know it was being talked about. We need to workshop and we need to start this even before that. So we're pushing on 2 years and this is where we're sitting. And I guess what I'd like to ask, and I know it's, you pull out your calendars and whatever the heck it is, for lack of a better term, fast track this workshop aspect of it and commit to saying, unless it's something super important, as soon as possible, reasonably possible to put this together, we're going to sit down and talk about this, because at this pace, we're going to be at 4 years before we get there. And in 4 years, I guarantee you, I can almost guarantee you, this land, this area, this huge area that we're talking about is going to be done. So we're going to be changing stuff related to areas that are already built out. And so I guess, I would just hope that we can move along. And if this doesn't affect you and stuff like that, this has just been and I get it, bureaucracy, whatever you want to call this, is a snail, okay? But I think it's very, I don't see the changes as being that many. The goals and policies and some shaving off on the future land use map, how difficult can it really be? And yet it's turning into being not only extremely lengthy, but potentially extremely costly issue. Where are we going to come up with even 30,000, is it in the budget, let alone anywhere near 400,000 or 500,000, depending on what we decide? Are we going to look at it and go, we'd like to do this, but we can't afford it? What do we do? Okay, so these are things that I think I'd like to consider. Let's move the process along as quickly as possible, because we're dragging.
Ed, I'd like to share what I think I heard, just in case I'm the only one that heard it. The 30,000 is beyond just simply word processing. When we give them a new future land use map, they're going to do.
Excuse me, Art, can you please, thank you.
They're going to do analysis to different parts of the comprehensive plan to see how it's affected. They're going to do computations on density and how it affects these. The second thing I'll note is that Aaron has said a majority of the cost, as I understand it, is with our old master plans that needed to be updated or recommended to be updated, regardless of whether we update the main body of the comp plan document. So I'm just articulating what I think I heard. Aaron's nodding his head for the public's knowledge, so that they don't think we're going to blow $500,000 on some word processing.
And I guess to tag on to what you just said, because I was thinking about that as he was talking about, we're hitting to that 5-year point anyway where they need updating.
Right.
Has there been any consideration, understanding that fact, has there been any budgeting consideration for the fact that, hey, this is going to be needed anyway? either we're already looking at it, or we better start looking at it, because no matter what we determine related specifically here, we're going to need to do it anyway.
All right, it sounds like everybody's asked their questions. Aaron, I want to thank you. Council, I will take for action to direct staff to query your calendars here in the next 30 days to see if we can schedule a workshop, and if not, then we'll look at the next 60 days, and unless you would desire something different. Okay.
That works.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on now to item 4B. Okay, this is our last unfinished business item, is to provide the third and final reading of the ordinance repealing ordinance 214 and to adopt the ordinance. So I'm going to read the ordinance by title, which is what is required on the third reading. An ordinance of the City of Hayden, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, repealing in its entirety ordinance 214, including section 4 relating to the order and procedures of consent calendars for city council meetings, providing severability and providing for an effective date. Okay, so now I'm calling for a motion to adopt the ordinance on having passed its third reading, and then it be published by summary incorporating the title as the core of the summary upon passage. Calling for a motion.
Okay, sure. I would move to approve the ordinance to repeal ordinance 214.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And there is a second. Is there any discussion on the motion being made?
Yes, I would like to say that, as I mentioned before, replacing ordinance 214 with the new resolution goes against the very definition of a consent calendar, violates parliamentary procedure, and infringes on individual council members' rights. And therefore, I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, prior to calling for a vote, I'm going to close comment for this agenda item, not for my benefit, but for the public's. Much has been said about the subject it addresses that is factually untrue, both for members of the public and a little bit from those sitting up here. Our procedures are important and must follow what is agreed or written by a majority of this body. Tonight, we are retiring an ordinance from the 1990s because we're advised that it creates ambiguity within our law. In its place last year, we created a new resolution to ensure our process is written and followed clearly. These are facts. Secondly, I want the public to know that I actually support the concept of a single council member being able to modify our consent calendar. But two issues prevent me from this: trust and accountability. And preventing one person from exercising authoritarian-like modification of our consent calendar, for me, is a responsible thing to do until trust and accountability are established. With that, I ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Schaefer?
No.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yep.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Point of order. This is the passing of an ordinance, and according to Idaho Statute 5902, to pass or adopt any ordinance, a majority of the council is required. I don't believe that the mayor can break the tie on that.
You want a legal opinion on that?
Yes.
So do you want to delay the vote then until the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we not give it on the fly?
I'm not giving it on the fly. You guys know the rules. I've asked you many times. If you have a legal question to ask of me, you give it to me ahead of the meeting so that I can be prepared for the public with an informed response.
Okay. Has this question been asked before?
Of me? No.
Fair enough. So what's the rules?
So you have a motion pending that you want an opinion as to whether or not the motion is, or the decision is valid. So I will give an opinion at the next meeting as to whether or not the decision that you made tonight was valid based on the mayor breaking the tie.
So the votes stick pending your legal
It
analysis.
stays pending my analysis.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What was the code section you cited again? I don't have the code pulled up.
It's 50902.
Thank you. And I'll likely provide you with a written legal analysis that you can read from the dais if you wish.
Thank you.
Okay, our first new business item is to consider a contract to provide the city assistance and stability as we navigate personnel turnover in our finance department. Council is aware of some personnel issues and some performance issues we've had, and so we're asking for your support to engage with Tate Consulting. Does council have any questions of staff or of myself?
I have a question. Okay, it says on here there's a $50,000 cap. Is there a time period associated with that?
No.
So it could be 1 month, it could be a year?
Correct.
If I have a question, if I may. This professional services agreement is not, this person or persons are not being employed by the city of Hayden. It's a separate entity that's going to be providing a service. What liability do they have to the work that they do? Do we have any protection for errors and omissions from this entity?
I believe they're required to provide the same level of insurance that any other professional service agreement would, which would cover for those listing the city as an additional insured.
Oh, so that's the paragraph 11 and the indemnification consultant thing? Yeah, okay. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the contract for supplemental finance department assistance, not to exceed $50,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion being made? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 5B, which is to consider the resolution to adopt the development fee schedule updates discussed earlier this evening in our public
Hearing.
Public hearing.
hearing.
Public hearing.
It was coming, hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I guess, I hope I'm in the right place here. I would motion to accept, I move to accept the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee recommendation and to move to instruct staff to notice the proposed fee increase for a public hearing.
Can we stop? That, we're beyond that. We just had the public hearing. So if you go to my memo, you'll see the background and recommendation action motion. It says staff recommends adoption of resolution 2501 to amend the current fee schedule with a new
Where is this?
table.
Because I'm looking at your memo.
Looking at my memo, you need to find her memo.
Your memo.
It's a lot of information.
Where is it?
Keep
'Cause I,
going to the next tab.
5B.
the
5B.
2501?
Yes.
Yes. And if you look at my motion, draft motion prepared in my memo updated January 8, 2025, with the agenda item being resolution 2501 to adopt, or sorry, 2025-01 to adopt new table 7 impact fees.
You go ahead, it's right here, this paragraph.
Okay, I move to approve staff recommends adoption of resolution 2025-01 to amend the current city fee schedule with a new table 7 that modifies the impact fees as provided for within the duly noticed public hearing and testimony received during that hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion made? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember Dupree?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to 5C, our next agenda item is to reappoint Sean Taylor to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Sean currently serves as our chair and does a wonderful job. His appointment tonight is required to comply with city code. Any questions, or would someone like to make a motion to reappoint Sean?
I'd like to do that. I'd like to move that we reappoint Sean Taylor to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember Dupree?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 5D is to consider recommendations by our Public Safety Council. We are joined tonight by our Public Safety Council Chair, who is here to provide us with notes on 2 recommendations to City Council following some tasking from Council.
Okay.
Welcome, John.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is John Spencer. I'm a Hayden resident, and I am the current chairman of your Public Safety Commission. As you recall, the commission mission is to act in a capacity, an advisory capacity for the City Council in matters pertaining to public safety, including law enforcement, fire, emergency medical services, etc. We recommend policies and procedures with respect to foregoing the approval of the City Council, or we will perform any other tasks that we're directed to do in that regard. We have currently 4 members and 1 vacancy. At the December 3rd meeting, and I assume you all got the memo from Lisa on the recommendations, right? You got that? Okay. At the December 3rd meeting, the Public Safety Commission made 2 recommendations. Our recommendations are in response to a request to provide a quasi-police chief that would report directly to the mayor and city council. And the other thing, the other area that we're discussing would be making recommendations is for the accountability piece of police officers assigned to Hayden. So this first recommendation, I guess, is in a response to the discussion that took place about reorganizing what we're doing. So our recommendation is sort of divided in a couple parts. First recommendation, the Public Service Commission recommends that the City Council, that the law enforcement be elevated to include, and this is as soon as possible, a leadership position. A leadership position should be that of a lieutenant with at least 15 years experience, and this person would then have a command staff position within the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. In saying that, to clarify, this would be a position that would be housed here. They would have an office here, and the deputies that are currently under contract with the city report to that person. And then that person would be the single point of contact for yourselves, questions, as well as the citizens. In addition to this first recommendation, we also recommended that the City Council prioritize a law enforcement budget that is on a continual track to increase support for additional positions if needed, parallel with city growth. In other words, we don't want to get caught up like we did before, where we had to go out and all of a sudden try to get 6 more deputies. There should have a budget that is on a sliding scale. Okay. For the second recommendation, the Commission recommends to the Council that the current metrics, such as the monthly reports and the Measure What Matters document that they are currently sufficient for meeting accountability of law enforcement hours for Hayden assigned deputies. Now, in conjunction with this, if you were to approve a lieutenant's position, that would be a first step in accountability. And we don't think it is necessary to approve any other type of tracking of individual deputies' hours. I think that would be probably, we believe that would be a waste of manpower at this time. Now, that can all change if we are approved otherwise, but those are our two recommendations. I'm open to any comments or questions.
Thank you, John. Any questions?
Yeah, could you expand on exactly how this senior officer would account for the hours for each deputy in Hayden? Would they fill out a form? Will there be, each vehicle has a Spillman software that tracks hours and time that a deputy spends. And so will that Spillman tracking give us the hours that they're actually spending in Hayden? I mean, it's your software and it's your vehicle, but we purchased 6 of them. So how's this going to work?
Well, this is an operational issue that would have to be decided and, and run it past the council if you have some desire to have that information. But that would be a decision how they manage those deputies. It would be under that particular lieutenant. How they do that, there may be other ways. I don't know, but that's an operational question that I can't answer at this point.
But you are our Public Safety Commission chairman. I would expect, or I would hope you would have that answer so that we could make a decision. If you don't know how they're going to do it, how are we going to know how they're going to do it?
We are not going to necessarily manage that particular officer who is going to be in charge of those deputies. That would be a question on the operational level for him, not for me.
Yeah,
not from the council.
I'm not implying that you manage them. That's not our job or your job. I just want to know how the accountability is going to work, because we were provided reports in January and February of 2024 that showed that deputies, one deputy in one day, some of them spent 50 hours here, upwards to 137 hours. That's one deputy in one day. And that was given to us by the sheriff's office. And that was questioned. And they said, well, we got a glitch in our software. We can't give you that information. So I want to know if we're going to say we'll give you another $250,000, to add one position.
Right.
I want accountability, and somebody that is representing our constituents, and we have a fiduciary responsibility on how that's spent. I expect accountability. That's me. I'm speaking for myself and other constituents. So how's that going to work?
Well, I think within the job description of this new position, there are things that you can put in there as a requirement for that person.
So you have law enforcement experience and you know how that should be done. Is that true?
No, I do not have law enforcement experience. But we have Captain Smart, who we're working with in terms of the operational side and and the type of data that you would need that would be satisfied. Yes, it may come from Spillman, it may come from other areas. I can't answer that question. But I think it could be built in to when you design, if you decide to go down this route, how you design that position, that could be a requirement. And then that person would have to come back and say, this is how we're going to serve your needs.
So another question is that you stated that you'd like to see us on some kind of scale that we increase the number of deputies based on population. Are you referring that we should follow Sheriff Norris's recommendation of, it's like 1.2, or forgive me, I don't have the right number, but 1.2 deputies per 1,000? Is that how we're going to be looking at this scale?
No, I wouldn't recommend doing that. What I'm saying is that there are cost escalations, right? So these numbers that we're applying today are going to grow. They're going to grow in terms of salary. They're going to grow in terms of benefits. There has to be some sort of scale. Now, at some point in time, it would be advisable for a number. For example, at what point do we need additional deputy? What are the statistical crossover points that say, okay, we high on this stat, we got more crime here, we got more drug problems, we've got 10 deputies, we really need one more. But those are numbers that at some point in time are going to make the decision, not some broad metric.
So is it true that recently in 2024 that the commission came up with a statement after they analyzed the data and the deputies that we have adequate coverage, although it's minimal? Is that true or false?
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. We looked at numbers that were initially exceeded the 10 deputies what we have right now. We looked at the metrics that say, okay, how many deputies per 1,000? We looked at that. The 10 looks like, based on the stats that we've seen, are sufficient for now. And we don't see just following a generic metric just for the sake of following the metric.
So do you agree with Sheriff Norris's statement that we should have 26 deputies? Because that's what he said publicly.
I wouldn't say that was a number that we should follow, no. But I do think it is a number that in the future, we could need 26 deputies. I can't predict that based on growth or anything else. However, I think the metrics that we're collecting and the data we're collecting should drive it.
All right, well, that's what he said, that he, based on current stats, that we should be at 26 based on the ratio of X per
Right.
1,000.
Yeah, you can look at other cities in the state of Idaho and look at those metrics. And
So I just want to know that you agree with that number.
I agree with following the numbers, wherever the numbers lead us.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, I think you started to talk.
Yeah, thanks. You said that the law enforcement budget should be on a sliding scale. Can you elaborate just a little bit more what you mean by that?
I think there should be, excuse my accounting terminology, some sort of a sinking fund that allows for growth. And this growth could be a natural growth in terms of what we pay a deputy today may not be what we pay a deputy tomorrow. The amount of benefits we pay today are going to increase. And then at some point in time, we may need to add a deputy or two based on need. How are we going to pay for it? It'd be nice not to all of a sudden go out and try to scramble for the money. We should have a budget that grows with the community because it's going to, I believe, probably will need an increase at some point.
So you're advocating for some kind of mechanism in the city budget to account not only for increased pay to attract the right talent, but also enough revenue to cover increasing population?
Yeah, I think that's something that should be analyzed in terms of a static number in today's environment just doesn't work because what we paid last year, the year before that doesn't fit the bill. And it's just going to cost more. And even if we decided in the future to add another deputy, that deputy we're probably going to be hired is going to be costing more than the deputies we hired 2 years ago.
Okay. My other question is, has to do with chain of command. Since we're talking about county deputies and I forget the verbiage you used, a lieutenant that's tied to the city, how does this affect, I mean, how does the reporting structure work here? Because we right now contract out for county deputy law enforcement. The chain of command comes from the county sheriff down. Are we going to be boxing that up if we have a lieutenant that is reporting to the city?
I think that particular reporting structure could be divided into two areas. There's one that deals with operational and there's one dealing with administrative. I think that particular person will be reporting to the mayor and city council. However, on an operational level, it's probably going to be back to the sheriff's department. I would assume that. Does that make sense?
And has the sheriff, well, it does, but my biggest concern is, what does the sheriff think of this idea?
I'm not sure.
I met with the sheriff and the undersheriff within the last 2 weeks, and they're both excited to move in this direction and support Hayden to the best of their abilities.
So, Sheriff Norris, would be content with having a lieutenant who's dedicated to the city of Hayden?
The sheriff and undersheriff are working on providing us, I think, additional cost estimates to give council options on different levels of a police chief type person at Hayden.
Okay, that's all the questions I have for the presenter.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Have you seen, these is the statistics that we get, and I'm, based on these statistics, and that go back to, year-to-date type of thing, from your own opinion, along with, I would imagine the commission has looked at the thing, you feel the adequate, that the coverage is adequate, that the number of deputies we have now is adequate when you compare it to, when you correlate or look at the statistics of crime, types of crime, et cetera?
Based on where Hayden sits right now, I believe we have enough deputies assigned to actually provide the right level of service. Those particular stat sheets also can provide very good trend analysis over time, and which some number or some combination of numbers on there will tell us if we need to increase deputies or not.
Right. But based on what we're seeing now,
That's fine.
it looks like we're doing a pretty good job. Everybody's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think in general, I think the reporting structure and having that lieutenant here, I think will come a long way in actually monitoring, seeing what we're doing, and then you can always adjust how, if you decide you wanted to, record a certain amount of hours or whatever. But I think that person would be key, a pivotal person to make this actually, we can't afford a police department. This is an interim to kind of help get some structure so there is accountability back to the city of Hayden.
Thank you.
That's the goal.
Any other questions for John?
Yes. So, yeah, thank you for coming tonight.
Sure.
And, I appreciate being able to go to these Public Safety Commission meetings. I'm going to get on my hobby horse here and say that this is Exhibit A of why we need to be recording, videotaping meetings, like these commission meetings, because what you gentlemen brought out was very valuable, and for us to be able to go back and look at it, listen to it, the citizens to be able to participate at other times and see what's going on is very valuable. So I would put in a plug that we start videotaping your Public Safety Commission meetings.
Okay.
There is a citizen who did videotape this meeting, and I was able to watch the meeting again, and getting to see it a second time was very helpful. I would like to suggest that there weren't just two recommendations, but there were two different motions, but they each had two parts to it. So I would say there were really four recommendations, and if I could break those down, one is to have a lieutenant housed here. Another one is to prioritize an increased budget, monthly reports that we are doing, to continue doing those. And the fourth one is no tracking of the sheriff's cars. And so I agree with the second, third, and fourth, the prioritizing an increased budget. I think we need to look at that, and our budget time is coming forward and really soon where we could look at that and increasing it. And then I love the monthly reports that are coming in. They're succinct, but they have a lot of good information in them. And I'm not in favor of tracking police cars. But I would like to know more about the lieutenant who would be housed here. I liked your explanation about there's operational and administrative aspects of it. So my concern with this one is that I would like to see them more accountable to the sheriff's department than accountable to staff. So what's your thought on that?
Well, if for example, dispatch is still going to be coming out of the KCSO's office.
Okay.
Okay, on the operational level. I think there's a line, and part of it is actually, if we decide to go forward with this position, part of the challenge is going to be coming up with a good job description that gives you some level of reporting and a comfort zone of a go-to person, and then, you know, where the split is between operational and administrative. That's about the best I can do it at this time without, you know, going in or having a job description, of which they may already have one. I don't know yet whether Captain Smart has done any work on that yet.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
One follow-up, if I may.
Sure.
You stated that the staffing is adequate. I heard you say that. So how do you justify saying we need to spend $271,899.21 if it's adequate?
This is a chief's position, of which 80% of that position is going to be administrative, and probably 20% may be a backup operationally. I think maybe you all agree or don't agree that what we're hearing from you is to have some sort of a tighter connection and accountability over those deputies. And this would add, I think, will go a big step into providing that accountability. It's an administrative job for most part.
So you're saying for $271,899.21, we're going to get accountability?
Well, I'm saying that's a good start on accountability. And I think too that those particular, why we want a lieutenant there is because you do want in a command level position at, you know, in that job.
But we have adequate coverage with deputies?
I believe so. Looking at the current statistics, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
What happens if you take the 21 cents
Hey.
off?
We have a problem.
I'd like the record to reflect that the amount of money that Councilman Roeder is suggesting it would cost is only meant to illuminate the gap in what the current actual cost of labor is to the sheriff's office over what we're paying. It isn't meant to suggest that that's how much it will cost the city to add that position.
Thank you. John, thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
And moving on to item 5E, our next item asks council to support a request for proposal. Specifically, we are asking our community to enter a pilot program to potentially create Hayden logo wear at no cost or risk to the city.
Do we have to vote, excuse me, Mayor, on 5D?
I'm trying to struggle with how we're gonna
Motion, yeah, on-
resolve 5D. Or,
Sorry, 5D or E?
D. Oh,
I moved on too quickly.
you have to,
yes.
motion to.
It was an action item.
I'm so sorry. So I guess I apologize. We need a motion to accept the recommendations of the Public Safety Commission?
Staff needs direction to work with the Public Safety Commission on what the desires of council is based on the input that you received tonight and the recommendations that came forward from the commission. With that in mind, leaving it with not that acceptance of direction or providing that leaves us to question what our next desires are in making that direction back to the commission to bring something forward at either budget time, et cetera.
Mr. Mayor? I would like to delay this decision and hear from the sheriff. You know, you mentioned that you have talked to the sheriff and he was going to bring a proposal forward. I would like to hear what he has to say before we make a decision. So I move that we delay a decision until we've heard from the sheriff.
If you heard from Captain Smart tonight, would that satisfy your curiosity? Because we're all working together on this. It's not, all of us that have been working on it know the same facts. Thank you, Captain Smart.
I believe if I hear you right, Councilwoman, I think your concern is that the statement that was made was that the chief would answer directly to the city council and the mayor. And I think you're saying, no, that authority still lies with the sheriff. Is that what you're getting
Yes,
at?
that would be accurate. Thank you.
Yes, and I think we were kind of misconstruing that a little bit. The vision from the sheriff's office would be the chief's position is an extension and a liaison who still operates under the authority of the sheriff's office, He's a member who's in command staff, so he knows the directions of the sheriff's office. He knows the directions that the sheriff is driving the sheriff's office. He just has that authority to be able to speak on his behalf under certain circumstances of the council or the mayor requests that we do more patrolling in a certain area. He's going to drive that message to ensure that that task is being taken seriously and handled by the deputies under him. If there was just general questions about, law enforcement concerns of how are we tackling vandalism or whatnot, the council could stop in and visit with him and say, I've heard recently over here that this is going on. What are we doing about that? It's a connection and a person who's just more readily available on a daily basis for you, the mayor, the city manager to work with, daily, as opposed to some weekly conversations, that we have to kind of do right now. So yes, the authority still lies within the sheriff's office on that.
Thank you. So the statement here was a quasi-police chief. So I was just, let me find it again.
We would title it as such, just be, again, it's no different than, Ada has the same thing. There's lieutenants of the sheriff's office, but they're spearheading as the chief of police for your city. These deputies are following under you at the same time of, they're deputies of the sheriff's office, but they're trying to take on the tasks of monitoring your city alone.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, did you have a comment?
Yeah, this is for Captain Smart. I'm trying to tread lightly on this because I know this could be a hot button issue, but so I'm struggling with the right words here, but where I really want to go with this is who has the ultimate authority, Captain Smart, in terms of enforcing the law? Because I see a huge constitutional difference between law enforcement coming from a county sheriff versus a city police. Now, I know we're not talking about starting a Hayden level city police, but how much would this lieutenant be answerable or be directed by the city of Hayden versus the county sheriff? Am I making myself clear in that line of questioning?
Well, if there was a conflict of, we thought that something was being directed of us that's illegal or unconstitutional, we would side with the sheriff's direction. Again, I think we're misconstruing. We're calling it a quasi-chief's position only in the image that they're here as a figurehead for the city manager to work closely with and be, again, a liaison to you. We don't have to call him a quasi-city chief at all. We can say, hey, there's a lieutenant of the sheriff's office who sits here at Hayden City Hall, and he is your person and point of contact. We don't have to call him ever a chief of police if we don't want to, or ever put a stigmatism or a name on it. We're just trying to give you a better liaison who has the ability to still speak and have that voice that can answer questions faster, that can get information to you more readily, quickly, without going through some of the chain of command or without some of the hiccups that the city manager and I deal with, scheduling and conflicts. He's here, available daily.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with that, I believe staff is asking for council to provide some direction as it relates to the recommendations provided by the Public Safety Commission.
Mayor, I do have a motion on the table by Councilmember White to delay the decision.
Do you still want to do that, or do you want to rescind your motion?
I would like to delay to the decision and get a job description of this lieutenant before we accept it.
And I'd like to second Councilman White. Besides getting a job description, I'd like to understand, at least on first blush, how the city would end up paying for this. And so how would it look like when in our budget?
I think that's what I'm asking for. If you guys support the direction by the commission to have staff engage in trying to solve these problems, then we'll go to work and do that work. If your direction is, you're not interested in this, we won't do that work. So essentially, by delaying the motion to propose a job description would be in alignment with what the commission is asking. You're just going into a more detailed component of it that isn't necessarily maybe the point that we need to be at right today, unless, of course, that's your prerogative.
Go ahead, Ed.
Wouldn't part of the, if we gave you direction to move forward with this recommendation, wouldn't part of moving forward be developing a job description?
Absolutely. That's essentially what I was
Yeah,
attempting to say.
That's what you just said, I think, that, yeah, that's going to be part of it anyway. And so what I'm understanding is you want them to separately develop that job description first and then come back, oh, okay, now either move forward or not, when it's part of the moving forward, as I understand it.
So at this point, the commission is asking for you to support their direction, or the recommendation forward to council to prioritize law enforcement and elevate the leadership position for the future budget cycle. And then also to provide, as the chairman mentioned, the plan for growth of how we're going to afford our law enforcement going forward. I realized that the motion by the commission was very open-ended, but arguably, if supported by council, the staff would be working with the chair and with the commission to develop the process and mechanisms for what the next step is. Conversely, if council's vehemently against the idea of creating this internal structure the way we suggested, then the direction back to the commission would be whatever that is, so.
So what it could be, instead of delaying a motion, I think what maybe got a little crosshaired is we're not, the city staff's not asking council to say, yes, stand up a lieutenant. It's to continue down the development of it. So if we delay that decision, then staff's not going to do any work. If you guys want staff to do work, then that's the motion that we're looking for out of this agenda item.
I believe my motion stands. I would like to see a job description and a clearer proposal of these steps that we are asking to accept. I don't
So
feel like-
essentially, making a motion to accept the recommendation of the commission is going to do exactly that.
Right.
Do you, and I'm just trying to flesh out with you kind of what your thoughts are on the recommendation of the commission. Do you agree with the recommendation of the commission?
I don't think it's clear what the recommendation of the commission is, because it was, in the minutes, it was 2 different motions, but like 4 different items.
So your request ultimately is then for the commission to go back and bring something forward that's more defined?
It doesn't have to go back to the commission, but even just in the next meeting to have a more clearly laid out.
Well, that's where the work happens, though, is with your commission, that's the point.
I'm trying to understand the role of the commission then.
Yeah.
Who's ultimately going to make the job description for this lieutenant?
It's going to be a collaborative effort between your city administrator, Captain Smart, and your commission.
I think we're jumping to step 8 when we need to get through 1, 2, and all the way up to 7. So at this point.
I just know how things move forward, and I would like this to move forward with more knowledge. I don't want to say yes to something that I don't think is clear yet.
Right, but you could make a motion to task staff to do exactly what it is you're doing.
There's a pending motion on the table that probably needs to be voted on.
What's that?
There's a pending motion with a second on the table that needs to be voted on.
Okay, fair enough. Is there any motion or discussion on the motion that's on the table?
I didn't hear what Fonda said. I didn't hear what Fonda said.
I said there's a pending motion on the table with a second that needs to be voted on. Didn't Tom second it?
He did.
Okay, so before we move forward based upon what I've heard, I'm comfortable with moving forward, because what I hear is all we're going to do is direct staff to figure out how this is going to be paid for, and then to work with the sheriff's department and the public safety commission to come up with a job description. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Okay.
So since we have a second, are we having discussion?
We're discussing.
Okay, can I?
Well,
put-
you're discussing the motion to delay
Right.
Oh, unless a second
Yeah.
or the motion is
is
pulled.
withdrawn.
So this relates to the motion.
I was,
Go ahead, Tom.
sorry, I was ready to ask for a delay, but based upon what council and city administrator have said, I'm comfortable moving forward because I believe that it's limited in scope and we're not getting ahead of ourselves.
Are you withdrawing your second?
I am.
Okay, is anyone making a second to the motion that is on the table?
Which is?
Which is to delay any action to the city staff.
I thought that was not second because Tom removed it.
It's right, it's no longer seconded, so
he's
I'm
saying,
asking
is
if
there a
there's,
second
if
to
there
that
another council member which wishes to second
Got
the
it,
motion.
got it.
So I'm hearing none. Would someone like to make a different motion?
Sure.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, I would motion to accept the public safety recommendation and to direct staff to move forward with developing a job description, researching cost, budgeting, et cetera, and all other elements that may be involved in the recommendation.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I will second Councilman Dupree's motion.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion being made?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm going to give some reasons here that I do not agree with an increase of $271,899.21. Let me start off with,
That isn't part of the motion. I think it's good discussion, unless I'm mistaken. The motion is to move forward with
right, and
them
I'm going
doing their
to,
analysis.
and I'm going to pose it, and I'm going to say why.
Okay,
I thought we had discussion on the vote.
on the motion, yes.
Okay.
Mayor, for the record, could I ask for clarification on the motion? Because I had that the motion was to accept the public safety recommendations and direct staff to move forward with the creation of a job description and funding of the
Seeking funding or
Plans
funding
of
plan.
Budgeting for the elements of the
of the
recommendation.
recommendations.
Yeah.
Is that all of the recommendations or just the recommendation for the liaison position?
I would say all of it. I would say that the recommendations given by the, yes. So we can get a true accurate picture, of the big picture. Because I'll be honest, and go ahead, Matt. And then
Yeah, I was just,
Go ahead, Ed, finish.
No, go ahead, finish. You were there. Go ahead and finish because
All right, well, this goes to the funding aspect of what would direct the staff for. The city of Hayden paid for the school resource officer at Dalton Elementary, which was not included in our contract with School District 271. This has been the situation for several years. So in other words, Hayden tax dollars were spent in the city of Dalton. I reviewed the contract between the city and School District 271. It said we would only pay for schools within the city of Hayden. So we were actually partially paying for that resource officer in the Dalton Elementary School. And the reason why I know is I have 4 grandkids there, and I picked them up, and I met with Matt, and he's the resource officer for Atlas and Hayden Meadows. The other point I want to make is the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office produced reports for the time that deputies spent in the city of Hayden. From the January and February 2024 reports, there were numerous entries for one day for one deputy, over 50 hours and up to 137 hours in one day for one deputy. Now that was given to us, and we were told there was a glitch in there, and so I have been asking for accountability on the hours. And it's real obvious that the Cooney County Sheriff's Office does not want the city of Hayden to track the hours, so does one of our council members, that the deputies spend in the city for accountability purposes. Now, I'm told by our commissioner that we'll have accountability, but they don't want to track them. So I have an issue with accountability. In the last 9 years, the council and mayor have, and I've been on city council for 9 years, have not received any pay increases, even with high inflation. In comparison, in the last 4 years during Sheriff Norris's first term, he has received 3 salary increases in addition to his yearly disability income and benefits from California for $186,675.60. His salaries were in 2021, $92,319, in 2022, $114,197, and in the year 2023, $145,000. Please, I'd like to finish, I'm almost done.
Thank you.
So in comparison, our new President Trump will make $400,000 a year as a new president, and Sheriff Norris is not far behind at $332,192. So for these reasons, I do not agree with an increase of $271,899.21 for the city to pay the Cooney County Sheriff's Office. No accountability, then no increases. Plus that money could be used to help fix intersections and traffic congestions. That's where I stand.
Can I ask a question?
I don't know, that was just so far off what was motioned.
Well, it's not going to delve into that per se. But I mean, the alternative appears to be that there's been discussion for quite a while now, and I believe Council President Roeder has indicated that he feels the city should be looking into, for lack of a better term, it started off as the feasibility of our own police department. Is that correct, Matt? You felt that we need to look into the feasibility?
I think that for negotiation purposes, I think it's important that we always look at alternatives, because if we just look at one method, you have no options and you have no leverage in negotiation.
And I agree with you with that. But what I'm hearing now, please correct me if I'm misinterpreting this. If we stall out here, and that's the way it feels, and get deadlocked or whatever it may be, then we may as well forget about it, drop it, because if we're in a situation here which we continually talk about, where are we going to get the money? And I agree, I have my notes right here, type of thing. We just went through a budget not long ago. There were 0 examples of where reductions could occur to shift revenue to cover increasing and inflationary costs. So we took the 3%, okay? The sheriff has made it obvious for quite a while now, the county/sheriff, that they want a 5-year plan from us because they're going to be increasing costs no matter what. So this liaison, quasi-chief, whatever you want to call him, is going to cost money one way or another. We're going to have increasing costs. Either this council is going to be faced in the very near future with going to the people again to raise the base to pay for the continued sheriff increases, because 3% isn't going to cut it, or we're going to be cutting programs and staff, okay, of an already undermanned, streamlined city staff who is overworked significantly, okay? So I agree, where are we going to come up with this money? And I think, again, like I keep saying, we need to be honest with the people. Okay, if you want these type of things, we're going to have to pay for them. Where are we going to get the money? And, to say that, I agree with you, I want accountability too. How exactly we go about that, I don't know. I understand the sheriff being reluctant to put trackers on their car because they do come in and out and all that. I get it. The trust factor comes in again. You know, are we trusting that the sheriff is doing what they're contractually obligated and saying they're doing? But I think what I just heard you say is you're not going to support it, okay? And if it loses support right now, it dies. And staff's not going to do anything, so you're not going to get any of your answers because they don't have, why? What are we supposed to do? What do you want us to do? And you're saying, we aren't going to do this. We don't want you to do this, but we want you to do this. John?
Yeah, can I just add something that I think the approval of what we recommended is just the first step to see the feasibility. By the time you develop a job description and look where the funding's coming, that could be the killer right there.
Right.
You can't afford it, you can't afford it, but you'll never know.
Right.
Unless you go forward at least to this next phase. And I would look at this as kind of a phased implementation potentially, but you can pull the plug anytime you want.
Right.
If you don't like the numbers and you don't like the job description and maybe how we can address Matt's issue on accountability, if that doesn't work out, you still have decision point, but you'll never get to that if you're stuck. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you stepping up. May I call for a roll call vote, please?
What's the
The motion is to task the city staff to explore,
I don't.
is to explore funding sources to develop a job description for our quasi-police chief type position. And I believe that pretty much covered it. So we get a roll call vote, please.
Council President Roder.
No.
Councilmember White.
No.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Yes.
Councilmember Dupree.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to 5E, as I stated earlier, we're asking council to support a request for proposal. We're talking with potential private sector companies that are interested in piloting a program to create Hayden logo wear. This will come at no cost or risk to the city. The only reason why this is before council is because by law, and we do follow the law, to kick this off requires an RFP, and RFPs have to come before council. Any questions for staff or I?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Whose logo is it?
Well, it would be a Hayden City logo. Everything isn't fleshed out because of course we're not putting work into something that you guys might not support, but the idea is to invite council and our city staff to have a logo contest and work with the vendor to make sure it's something that could be done. We've talked about options down the road, even changing it by year to kind of increase community spirit and I guess that's it.
Okay, I don't have a problem because we have art on display and they do have the ability to sell it. So it's, my concern is this, be very specific. If we are using assets, space and time to promote somebody else's logo that they have copyrighted, I don't like that idea.
Sure.
But if it's a logo that is the city of Hayden that people recognize and we're promoting that, that's a separate issue. And what are we looking at?
When you mean,
Which logo are we looking at? One that may be copyrighted by somebody else that would be on all this merchandise, or is it a copy? It's like, are we going to have that logo because that's recognized by the city?
I think it's undesigned at this point.
I know, but to me, it's important to know whose logo is it?
I don't know that we've thought through copyright. Frankly, it was an issue. The idea behind this is much like Coeur d'Alene definitely generates a community spirit through stores that specifically sell spirit type wear. We're trying to get a similar effort up here and do so in a way that doesn't impact the taxpayer. So honestly, when it came to things like copyright, it's not really a factor for me personally.
I just see a problem if we as a city is promoting a logo that a commercial enterprise is producing.
Right.
That's
and we
my
wouldn't-
concern.
Yeah, and we wouldn't necessarily be endorsing it. We're just providing the space. So it's up, in other words, all the risk is on the potential vendor who would create the wear.
So does that mean any vendor can come to us and say, we'd like the city to sell something, and we'd be obligated?
No, because we're following an RFP process.
I think that's the intent of bracketing this particular endeavor with an RFP that allows us to pick a vendor specific to this issue, so we could theoretically say no to others.
So I'll put another parallel. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around it. I'm sorry I asked a lot of questions. That's just my nature. But like the vendor that we have at Honeysuckle Beach, they sell something. We provide a space. We charge them for that. Will we be charging for this endeavor in whoever's selling the?
Now, where the idea is just a kiosk at the front of City Hall where they've got a QR code or some way for them to have a direct from consumer to their store purchase.
And who manages and where's the accounting for it? Who handles the accounting?
It's all on the vendor.
Okay.
That's why I said there's no risk to the city, there's no cost to the city.
So someone's going to be here 8 hours a day during the?
No, we'd set a sample kiosk up and there would be an online store. Hypothetically, it's up to the
QR
vendors.
code or whatever.
Yeah, QR code. It's up to the vendors to say how they're going to do it, which is why we're going to evaluate the proposals.
Okay.
But we're looking at something that doesn't cause us to spend any time from staff or anything else.
Okay.
It's basically a free deal for the city.
I have a few questions. I was just reading the memo on it. It says city staff has prepared the process and documentation, and also we seek council's favorable motion. So who is we? Who is the staff that's come up with this idea?
I'd say it's mine originally, and I've discussed it with Lisa, the feasibility of it, and so far it's been positive.
Okay, so we is you and Lisa?
It was the mayor's idea, and he's vetted it through his resources in order to get it in front of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
His resources are,
Lisa and myself.
okay.
Like, how would this work?
Okay, so if it's come through you, Fonda, have you, charged the city for that time?
Yeah, we had very little time talking about it, but the answer is yes.
Okay, so there is, so far, money to the taxpayers for this, endeavor.
So everything that ends up on your agenda generally has to go through me, irrespective of where it came from. So,
Okay.
yes.
All right, and then, so, I mean, talking about space, a kiosk in the front, I mean, we don't have room here. I mean, I want a desk here, and I don't have one. The mayor doesn't have a desk. Where do we have room for a kiosk that would house this kind of stuff? And would we, I mean, this is valuable real estate. Would they be paying rent on it? And we've heard over and over, I don't think a council meeting has gone by where we haven't heard that the staff is overworked. And so I see this as a commercial endeavor and not a city endeavor. Thank you.
Any other questions?
One last question. Will the city receive any revenue from this?
No.
So we're offering it free as an advertisement for a commercial endeavor?
We're merely doing as we do with art out there, and the various things that we have in our lobby. The footprint of the kiosk will be minimal, and
I think we need to set the expectation that this is a learning process, that we were piloting this as an opportunity to gain knowledge as to whether or not the private sector would even be interested in this. The anticipation of what it will look like won't be known to us until the proposals come in. So I think making statements that we don't know the size, we'll learn through that, through their proposals. And then, of course, it'll come back to council for acceptance of the proposal as well as a contract.
Go ahead, Ed.
So again, it sounds like, especially from what I just heard, we're not committing to anything right now. We're just saying, hey, we're going to put this out there,
Yep.
see if anybody's interested in doing it.
Yep.
They're going to present a proposal.
Yep.
Proposal's going to come back to us, and we're going to be able to go, yeah, well, maybe, whatever, based on what we get. And at that point in time, we can look at it and say, yeah, this might be a good idea, or nah, not going to happen. Just off the top of my head, and the mayor used the example of Coeur d'Alene and the like, and other cities and other entities. I don't have a problem with seeing somebody riding a bike around town that has a City of Hayden shirt on it. If it's a nice, well-designed, shirt or hat or whatever it is, I think this is a very common practice now everywhere. People put their logos on things, and the more visibility, if it's in a positive manner, that entities can get, the better. But again, I think let's put the RFP out there. Let's have them come back and say, here's the deal. And at that point in time, we can then make a decision of whether we think it's a benefit to the city or not.
Any other comments? Tom, anything?
You fell asleep.
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Okay,
My motion is that we direct the staff to request proposals for a merchandise kiosk.
Second.
okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion being made?
I would like to just point out that in the motion, it's directing staff to do something. So there is a cost to the city for this. Therefore, I'm voting no on this. Thank you.
We got a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Schaefer?
No.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
Yes. Our last agenda item tonight asks council to adopt an ordinance to issue a bond in support of sewer treatment plant upgrades for the public's enhanced understanding. The city obligated itself in 2012 to fund sewer treatment plant regulatory compliance upgrades. This action item is to approve adoption of the ordinance and to authorize the mayor to sign all closing documents. This is not an agenda item to obligate the city to new debt. We have our in-house counsel, well, I shouldn't say in-house, our
Bond counsel.
thank you, our bond counsel with us. Should our counsel have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I could also just provide, council should have received an email from me yesterday afternoon sort of summarizing the two phases of this particular regulatory compliance upgrade that was done since the 2012 timeframe that the mayor had suggested when the city initially obligated the funds towards this project. As a means for clarification and the benefit of the public that's here tonight, that process at the time was to first establish the need by requirement of IDEQ, a regulatory agency over our wastewater treatment plant, and then to essentially take those regulatory compliance upgrade requirements and break them into two phases. The amount of money totally obligated was a little over 18 million. And at the time in 2012, the estimated costs were exceeded in totality by only $89,000 from the original amount of money estimated back in 2012. So with the action tonight, the proposal would be to essentially close that construction loan into a bond, which is the formality that the city has to go through in order to complete this task, and to essentially issue the loan to the city. It's a 20-year loan term. And the city has, over the course of the last 5 years, taken increases to our rates in order to essentially create the revenue to pay this bond. You recently upgraded your rates at the last council meeting when you adopted a rate increase of approximately $1 a month. And that was, again, to help generate the revenue associated with paying these two bonds. So with that, I would stand for any questions, but I did want to make council aware of the fact that this has been a process that you have every council season in the budgeting process looked to budget for and plan for, and your rates are also being increased in order to pay for those. With that, I stand for questions.
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, so just so everybody can possibly be clear on this, hopefully, city was obligated in 2012 to this, correct?
The city obligated itself to it in
Right.
2012.
Okay. What choice do we have? What are the consequences if we don't?
Go ahead, Danielle.
Mayor and council, this is just sort of the last step in the process. As Lisa has described, the loan agreement with DEQ was entered into in 2019 for this second phase of the project. And the funds have already been borrowed, and the project has been built in compliance with those permit requirements that came from EPA and DEQ. So I have full confidence in saying that even if you didn't approve the bond, DEQ is going to come and ask you to repay the money.
Right.
So that's what would happen.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Now, there's different kinds of bonds out there. Some of them go to vote to the voters, but this isn't that kind of bond?
So this bond, to borrow money, as you all know, the city has to comply with Article 8, Section 3 of the Idaho Constitution, which typically requires a vote. For revenue bonds, it's a 50% vote. There is a provision that allows for ordinary and necessary expenses to be completed without a vote. We take those types, because there's very specific case law on what is considered an ordinary and necessary expense, we take those to the court under a process called judicial confirmation and ask a judge to make a determination as to whether a project is ordinary and necessary. The types of projects that are deemed ordinary and necessary are projects like these, where they're permit driven. So when we took this project to a judge in 2012, it was subject to a DEQ and EPA permit with a compliance schedule that meant that you had to build out the project to meet the requirements of the permit by a specific date. And the judge did in fact determine that it was ordinary and necessary. So a vote was not taken, but a judge made the determination that it met those constitutional requirements and could be issued.
Thank you.
I guess on that, and again, not being a legal scholar, okay, I've heard this discussion, and I don't know whether this applies, but the city, any entity, is required to provide sewer service. Is that correct? I mean, you can't say, no, we don't have the capability. The city is required to provide. Am I going down the right road? Because I think we've had this discussion. And if you do put a bond out to the people and they say no, that the state can compel you to pay that or to build that sewer or to provide service. Is this along that line somewhere?
I don't remember the actual dollar amount of the fee, but I recollect back in 2012 when we were talking about this and when we took it to the judge, there was a fee, I believe it was in the neighborhood of like $30,000 per day. Does that sound about right, Alan? That for non-compliance.
I think it's much higher than that.
Right. So whether the people, you say, well, let's take it to a vote of a bond, and yet people say, no, we don't want to pay anymore. That the state can basically compel you, say, yeah, you have to pay whether you like it or not. And those are the situations that we're in that I think a lot of people don't really understand. You know, we all want to be able to vote, and if we say no, no, but the statutes and the laws say different, and there are certain situations, and I think this sounds like one of them to some degree, where we don't have a choice.
The city absolutely would have been fined in a material way if it were to not comply with the project. And ultimately what would have happened is, so the city discharges its treated wastewater into the Spokane River, and that discharge would have been terminated, which means that nobody gets to flush their toilet anymore.
Question, if I may. So it's obvious in my opinion, we've got to approve this. We have no choice. What financial effect does it have on our ratepayers by a yes vote on this?
So as Lisa said, you've been planning for this project since before 2012. So the rate study has always been designed to repay the two bonds, the Phase 1, which was issued in 2016, and this second phase project. So my understanding is that you're already collecting with the anticipation of paying for this bond. So the rates will not go up any more than they are now to pay for this. And what's pledged to the repayment of the debt is the net revenues of the system. So you get to pay your O&M first to operate the system,
Right.
because obviously you have to operate it to collect fees. And then all the rest of the fees are pledged on a priority basis to the repayment of the two bonds on an equal basis.
So there's no financial impact to our ratepayers with the yes vote on here right now.
No, because I mean, the loan agreement was, like I said, was executed in 2019. So the city's been planning for this completion of construction and the amortization of the loan.
Any idea how long the ratepayers will be paying these two bonds off?
So they're each 20-year, they're each a 20-year bond. So the 2016 began repayment in 2017, so it'll be completed in 2037, and this one will be completed in 2045.
Thank you.
So did I hear you correctly? Basically, we've been creating a reserve fund for this through our fees, that there's already a pool of money that we've been collecting
There
with the
is,
intention of
and-
dedicating it to this?
There is, and the documents, coincidentally, the documents require a reserve fund. So you're meeting that covenant of the loan documents by having those funds already in the account currently. I would mention too, just for the edification of the public, that these are extremely low interest rate loans that the city was able to take advantage of
market.
through DEQ. So the 2016 loan bond now is at 2%, and this bond is at 2.75%. So significantly under market, because you're taking advantage of this state revolving loan fund that allows, and they're not trying to make money, they're just trying to facilitate projects getting done, because they want you to comply with the permits.
Any other questions for council? I'm going to call for a motion to read the ordinance by title only, suspend the rule of reading it in full on 3 separate dates, and approve the first reading.
So move.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, I think a second motion might be in order to authorize you to sign the closing documents.
That authorization is actually in the supplemental ordinance, so it's fine.
All right, perfect, thank you.
A supplemental ordinance of the City of Hayden, Kootenai County, Idaho, authorizing the issuance and sale of the city's wastewater revenue bond, Series 2025, in the principal amount of $9,758,660.88 to provide funds necessary to finance certain improvements to the wastewater and collection systems serving the city, ratifying and/or approving the execution and delivery of a loan agreement and amendment thereto, providing for the sale of a wastewater revenue bond to the State of Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, pledging revenues for payment thereof, fixing the form and terms of such bond, providing for other matters properly relating thereto, and providing for the effective date hereof. Calling for a motion to adopt the ordinance on having passed its first reading by title only, and that it be published summary incorporating the title as the core of the summary upon passage.
So moved as stated.
Second.
You get a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
And close 5F. Move on to, Lisa, anything from the city?
I would hope that council would give me some time to report back to you some summary information from last year. I wasn't prepared, didn't have that ready for tonight, so I'll try to get that to you at the next meeting.
Is Donna asking for that? Okay. I was going to do it under future agenda. Kevin Smart, do you have anything that you want to brief the council tonight?
Not specifically, Mr. Mayor, I just would stand for any questions about the November report that we submitted to you. If you had any thoughts or things that you wanted answered.
I'd sent you a question on it via email within the last week. I assume you're working on an answer?
Short answer is no. There's a long answer that I can certainly deliver right now if you choose to do so, or
Is it just too hard?
the system does not differentiate between calls for service that we handle by phone versus that we drive to the scene.
So you're unable to break apart those statistics?
It will never be, again, as Councilman Roeder likes to deliver almost every time we meet, the system does not do everything that we like to do.
Okay.
We can certainly provide you some information that's still going to have anomalies to it about calls for service that we were on priority calls, so it just took longer to respond to a non-priority call. I can break them down by priorities if we want to look at something like that. I have reached out to Spillman Administrator to kind of talk about what other reports we could run that will flesh out some information, but it's still going to have variables to it all the time, just like this column already does.
And just for the, I guess for council's information and the public, I had asked Captain Smart if he was able to, because some calls are handled on the phone, that eschews the reporting time down to a lower number than it would be, because obviously if they're on the phone, they handle it immediately. It's a 0 or 30 seconds. And I was asking if we could get a more accurate actual service call time average from the sheriff's department. So I'd appreciate you looking at whatever you can do with Spillman. It's not life or death, just trying to improve the excellent information you're already giving us.
Okay?
Sir, on the monthly activity report here, this portion here where it says police, or I guess it's deputy, not police, initiated and all other citizen, are those contacts, are the deputy initiated something they've observed and they see, so they act on it? And are the all others something that a citizen or somebody has called or notified? Am I interpreting that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, if I may. Okay. I want to thank our sheriff deputies and the leadership, because you guys do a great job. I know that I've spoken out about things that are dear to my heart about accountability, and that's no reflection on the job that the deputies are doing. As a fiduciary responsibility to our citizens, I feel a duty to know how our money is spent and what we're getting for it. So that's not a reflection on, and I want to make that clear, because I really appreciate what you do. We feel safe. I've talked to numerous people and they say, we feel really safe in Hayden, and that's great. Now, I want to ask you, I do want to ask you a question based on the monthly statistics that you provide. In your opinion, in general, where are the crime stats going? Are they going down, are they going up, or are they level?
They're level. I mean, you can take some of them as a whole, and we see some trends going down. There's other categories of crimes that go up. Again, I think sometimes you want to put everything in a box. We don't make widgets. We don't have things coming off an assembly line. Everything with law enforcement, it's fluctuating, it's fluid. We can't know tomorrow if we're going to have 400 calls for service or 2. We can't know tomorrow if we're going to have a serious crime or no serious crimes. So, you know, everything is a fluid emotion. And so just to kind of come in and try to label every time, oh, is that specifically going down? Yeah, total calls for service appear to be going down in general. Is crime going up? Well, not so much in some of the categories, but in others, yes, they are.
But in general, it's pretty level is what you're saying.
Yes, you know, we haven't, there, again, what kind of variance are you looking for? 5%, 10%, where it's going to be the threshold of spinning you over the top to say, that's a significant decrease, or that's a significant increase, or that's even.
Right, and you know, we went out on a public vote to increase our levy rate by about 26% to pay for additional deputies. And what we were told by Sheriff Norris, because he spoke to us, he was supporting that increase. He said, when you have those 6 new deputies, your crime stats are going to go down. And they're not, according to what you're saying. So why aren't they going down?
I can't help that citizens still do bad things at times that we have to go to respond to. That I'm not the one who gets to go out there and make sure that everybody's doing it exactly the way every day.
Well, I know, I just want by, I'm not.
Best to be responsive to the calls for service that are here. You know, we do our diligence to be proactive in our enforcement natures. You could also say that maybe crimes have gone up because of the fact that we have a little more proactive policing. Maybe we're finding more people with drugs and more things, you know, involved on scene views versus a citizen actually calling it in. So again, that's the ebb and flow. Low policing numbers, we're reactive. Sometimes we're able to now be proactive and help keep the citizens safe because we're able to get out there and see things ourselves as opposed to waiting for something to happen to them.
So, and one last question, I know it's getting late. Our Public Safety Commission has stated that there's an adequate number of deputies to cover Hayden. Do you agree with that statement?
No, I do not. Because what you're forgetting to understand is these calls are such a nature, it takes more than 1 or 2 deputies to come. So we're routinely bringing in more resources from other areas of the county. And so the statements about, if you wanted to say, if a call could be handled by a single deputy all the time, then yes, we could probably get by with that, but they don't. 80% or more of the calls we go to require 2, 3. We had the incident in Hayden a month ago, it required 7. So you only have a guy or maybe 2 guys on. That's 5 other resources that came in to help and assist. That's why I'm also perplexed all the time about your concept of the contract. It's ebb and flow. Deputies go out to assist, deputies come in to assist.
Well, it's not my concept. We have a contract with the sheriff's office, true?
It says deputies get to go out and deputies get to come in. I want to say 100%, where are my people?
Well, yeah,
They're out helping sometimes, and other times, it's 100%, we're all in.
I just don't know what percent is spent in Hayden and what's outside, and that's the thing that perplexes me.
I would challenge you to find something that we've done wrong and we've missed.
Well, we were paying for a resource officer at Dalton.
Okay. You've said several times that we're double dipping on that. We get nothing from that.
I didn't say
That's an
double.
issue between Hayden and the school district of Corleone City.
That's just one example of where.
You also, that deputy is also servicing probably about 50% of that school's kids that come from Hayden. Are you wanting to tell the citizens of Hayden, your children there are not important?
I know citizens of Coeur d'Alene also go to Dalton, so I mean.
Okay. Well, maybe you, if you would like to work out a contract to help involve that part of it. We never challenged you to say you have to pay for this school resource officer that you're already getting revenue for.
Yeah, we're on a mute point, actually. The school district is, at least via email, indicated they're not going to renew giving Hayden money towards that school resource officer.
Correct.
So in essence, we're going to spend more money out of our budget next year for law enforcement.
But in essence, the school district will be paying for the resource officers and not the citizens of Hayden, which I think is a good thing.
Well, it is and it isn't. We're going to be taking about a, what, $40,000 hit on the budget?
It's a little over 60.
$60,000 budget where we were getting money from the school district that we will not be getting now. So our citizens will actually be paying a little more next year for law enforcement. But anyway, I think we're a little off the subject. Any other questions on the report for Captain Smart? Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Any council member going to a board, any reports to the rest of council?
Yes. So I went to the airport board on January 8th. From what I can see, operations seem to be running smoothly. The next meeting will be February 12th, and it may include a discussion on noise abatement.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. Under request for future agenda items, I'm asking if council's available on January 27th at 5:30. I think Donna has some code amendments she'd like to go over with us.
I'd like to have a joint workshop with planning and zoning, and their public hearings that we're kind of thinking about happening that night aren't. So it's an available night that they could meet.
So is council available on January 27th at 5:30?
What day is that?
Monday. It's the day before our council meeting,
At 5:30?
5:30.
Yeah, I am.
Ed's a yes. Mayor's a yes.
Yes.
Sandy's a yes.
Maybe.
Matt's a maybe. Tom?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, sounds like it's a yes, so we'll get that on the schedule. Does any council member have a request for future agenda items?
I do.
Yes.
Yes, so there's been some discussion in the city, in the county, about our 2024 Kootenai County Emergency Operations Plan. The city of Hayden passed it, we approved it in October, but it's come under scrutiny since it's come before the Coeur d'Alene City Council. There's going to be a special meeting of the Office of Emergency Management on January 22nd at 8 a.m., where this is going to be discussed some more. So they may be making changes to that emergency operations plan. So I would just say that we need to be looking to what the county commissioners decide to do about changes on that. And so we may need to bring it back and reapprove it or not. So this is a maybe. I just wanted to let you know. And I would like to bring forward videotaping the meetings at City Hall. We've talked about this before, but I believe that we need a robust discussion on discussing videotaping all the meetings in this room.
We're planning, I believe we're planning to have that later this month. We didn't on this agenda because it was so darn long.
Okay, thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, real quickly, leave that. I spoke to Don about this the other day briefly. The ACI review is, I guess, in the process-ish, and needs to be completed by the end of this year. Is that correct? I think, I don't know whether the council needs to really be involved. I would like to be involved and updated on, you know, what are the proposals, where, what stage are they in, and what does it look like the city of Hayden is going to end up receiving as their boundaries. So I'd appreciate some discussion on that.
Okay, I'm sure we can give you a progress update.
Yeah.
For the sake of the audience, could you define ACI?
It's the area of community impact?
Well, no, it used to be called the Area of City Impact in
City
the Idaho
Impact.
Code. It has been amended in the new code to be just called Area of Impact.
Area of impact, okay. Thank you.
And there's some pretty tight parameters on what that area of impact can and should be. And so we've been working with the other communities to just make sure, first of all, there aren't overlapping interests in area of impact. And then, yes, it'll come to planning and zoning and to you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.